Welcome back to our second part of our seminar with Mr. Ambassador of France.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be back.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm often here.
Yeah, you're often here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. We will go further on from the topic from last week, and the next topic is France on higher education. And the first question I got for you, Mr. Ambassador, is that France has a huge number of foreign students today, coming from places all across the globe. How important is it for France to get foreign students into a country?
Well, you're right that the numbers are quite high. They probably should be even higher, but we had, well, I refer indeed to a normal year because the situation is a bit more complicated, as you very well know, for students these days, but normal time we have roughly 360,000 foreign students in France, coming from almost 200 countries. So it's really not only a high number, but very diversified origin, geographic origin. We have people coming from all continents. There is an important representation of Africa. I would say both Northern Africa and the whole continent. And some people are coming from Asia, indeed. We have students from also this part of the world. And among non-English speaking countries, we are, I would say, at the same rank than Russia and Germany. So we are roughly in this situation. Why is it important? I would say for several reasons. First one, obviously, is that it's something extremely, it's wealth, an intellectual wealth for our own students to interact with foreign students. And the first benefit, indeed, is the mix of culture, of experiences, the fact that when you live in a country, well, your view is necessarily curbed by the part of the world you are living in, and when somebody from a very different part of the world comes and interacts with you, it gives you different perspective, it changes your analysis and the way you see the world. So we believe it's the first benefits from foreign students coming is our own teachers and our students. And also, we believe it's extremely positive for the future relation of France with all the parts of the world where these students will come back, where they come from, because they will know more of us, they will have an appreciation of what is French knowledge, French culture, French skills, and well, they will become more or less ambassadors for extending our network in the world. I am struck by the fact, as I am in Norway, that some of the people I am dealing with made part of their own studies in France, even not in higher education, but at the lycée, just before the baccalaureate. And well, they know France through its education system. So they have a very precise understanding of the way we are educated, the way we think. And when I meet them, and there are a lot of them, more than I expected, to be frank, I measure how fortunate I am to meet them, because things are so much easier in our interactions, in our dialogue, in our negotiation, if we have some. So it helps a lot to talk to people who have a knowledge of the way your own mind works, and reciprocally, obviously. So I believe it's obviously something extremely precious for French students in France, for the fact that we will be much more interlinked in the world through generation of students having been in our universities or in our business school. And we hope, and we try to make that attractive, that it's also a gain for those who come, obviously, because they will, on the one hand, be able to be in a French speaking atmosphere. They will have the benefit of what we can do in higher education, in what sector we have strengths, and this is why also they come. So it's really mutually beneficial for all those who are part of this exchange, of this cross studies, if I may call that like that. Then like that, it's really something we are eager to develop. We try to make to increase the possibility to come to France. We can indeed be conscious that the language is one obstacle, because it's easier to go to English-speaking countries, because English is the most common vehicle for everybody, and I won't certainly it's break news to you by saying that we are talking in English, and this is just one example among millions. So we try to create in France some courses that are given in English. So you can come to France, be in a French bath, if I can call it like that, but still a part of your teaching and your courses will be in English. So it's also, it's not designed, I would say, to necessarily make people speak French, because if the language helps, it's not the only way to communicate. And if you are, for instance, to learn some scientific skills, well, the math is more or less the same language in every country. So you can communicate through math, through science, without necessarily talking exactly the same language fluently. So this is also part of common experiences, and years later, these people who have studied together, they will be perhaps researchers, science responsible in their own countries, and they will be able to follow programs together or to invent something together, because they will know each other for a long time, they will trust each other, and it will create development far beyond the period they were studying together. So it's like, you know, putting seeds in the ground, and you don't see the plant immediately, but 10 years later you can get beautiful trees.
Right, and a way of getting people educated, you're doing that through your language, which are, I don't know, was it the 5th most spoken language in the world?
Yes.
Especially in Northern Africa, you are educating a lot of people
yes.
to speak.
We celebrated, it was exactly last Saturday, 2 days ago, the Day of Francophonie. And when you look at the figures, we have now about 300 million people in the world talking French. And it's true that a large community of French speakers is in Western Africa. And it's interesting to note that, because Africa is probably, if we do things right, the continent of the 21st century, the continent with most potentialities in growth, in innovation. There are huge possibilities in Africa. providing once again they can get all the help they need, but Norway is a great contributor to that. France is contributing too. Multilateral organizations are helping too. So we very much hope that Africa will be leading the future in the new century we are now well in. And well, in this continent, there will be quite a lot of people who will work in French, and knowing French will also be an asset to work with these African countries and to be part of this future.
And that's a very interesting thing, because personally I would like to study in Africa, and then it's important to learn French because they're speaking French down there. So it's a positive thing for France that your language are well spoken down there, and it's in many ways positive for us Europeans as well, because then we can both speak it in the near region of ours as well as in other regions. It may be bad reasons as well for why colonialism and blah blah blah, but it's still a positive thing that we don't need to learn, I don't know, 100 different languages.
Yes, we need some common vehicles. The most obvious, I said it, is English. Spanish is also very important. Language, when you travel in the world, you observe that in many countries you will be welcome and understood if you si se habla español.
Más o menos.
Más que menos.
¿Habla más español?
Yo hablo mucho mejor español que inglés.
Oh,
porque español es un idioma latino.
Okay, ¿Latinoamérica?
Sí.
¿Qué es en Latinoamérica?
Sí, en Latinoamérica, y sus raíces son del latín como el francés.
Oh, okay.
Tenemos, we'll stop with Spanish because we will lose some listeners.
100%.
I don't want to lose the audience. But still, what I was just saying is French and Spanish share the same roots, which is the Latin language. So for somebody who speaks French, which was my case in the beginning, learning Spanish is easy.
A lot of the same grammar, right?
Yes, the same, and the words have very often a strong proximity.
Right. So that's an important thing to know, that if they speak Spanish or French, it's even easier to adapt to each other languages. Like me, which lived 2.5 months in South America for a year ago before Corona took it all, learned some Spanish, and then it's possible for me to learn French. It's a good thing to know. But France uses a lot of money to promote French language, as we talked about, to new places of the world every day. How important is the foreign promotion of higher education for France?
It's really at the top of our agenda. We indeed do that for our own population. We are in a world where you need people with, say, very sophisticated skills, because the way our economy works, our society works, obviously need that. And we are lacking, perhaps, in some fields, the people we need. We perhaps were not keen enough to train people skilled in mathematics, for example, even if we have very high-performing ones, as we can see when you look at the number of people of France who got a field medal. But still, the numbers are not high enough, so higher education for science in particular is extremely important for the future of our country. That is one reason, and also because we very well know, for the people themselves, if they got the level of higher education, the highest possible, they will indeed have better chances to find jobs, to be completely with a good future, and to have interaction in a society that will satisfy themselves. So education is designed primarily for the needs of the one who are learning. So, but it's important and it's difficult to make sure that at the end of the process you have both achieved the two goals, the one which is to make people in full possession of their destiny, their professional choices, etc., and the one who consists to have enough qualification in your economy to stay, I would say, in the stream, to have researchers, to have people who are capable of innovation, and that your country won't more or less be out of the game. And it has become very difficult because this game is changing very fast. And when you look at the innovation around the world, you see how difficult it is to always catch up with new sectors, to be able to create research centers that will provide innovation, that will transform into new industries. Well, the United States have always been excellent at doing that, and we have perhaps been on a more traditional model for a certain time, and we are now trying to modernize and adapt our system of higher education. We have some strengths. For instance, business schools are quite good, and they have a good reputation around the world, but in the science field, we believe we should make more efforts and perhaps put more money to perform better.
That's a perfect thing for us, SAIH, which are promoting students and academics' rights internationally where it's under pressure. So, on our website, as a representative of SAIH, I'm very pleased of you saying that. So now at the end, we got a lot of more general questions from places around Norway, which has sent in some questions to us to ask you. And the first of that is more back to the history part. And then I would like to ask you, in Norway, we use a lot of time talking about French history, because your history is the most history we learn about in school from an early age, as I talked to you about Montesquieu, Rousseau, and Voltaire. And last week, I asked the German ambassador about how it is to teach their students and their younger people about Germany's history, which is quite the opposite from your history, which is more proud and prosperous. How do you explain your history to your students?
Wow, that's a quite infinite question, you know. It's when I learned history, I would say it was quite simple, you know, because I had excellent teachers in the lycée, and I remember always what our history teacher told us on the first day in class when we were entering the lycée. History is the science of chronology, and at the time the way history was taught was linear, so it was not so bad way to do things, because you always knew what was coming first and what was coming after. And history has perhaps no laws, but at least it has a logical order. So I believe today we have indeed, as many science, history has evolved. And the way it is taught is perhaps a bit different, and you take rather the perspective of to have some angles, you know. So perhaps you will be taught about the history of rural areas, and it is one way of entering the subject. And perhaps social matters will more be taken in account in the way history is taught. So I won't make a conference on the subject, and I'm certainly not in position to make a conference. But what I want to stress that the most important thing at the end of the day is that you have created memories in the brain of all the students and the pupils who are going through the education system, so they have an understanding of what has been before them. We live, and perhaps it's because I am not a student anymore, in a world where our brain is captivated at any moment by considerable numbers of information, and sometimes we might feel a bit disorientated and even lost. Well, we manage to process them, but still I feel that it is a strong help to be able to back this information by my knowledge of the past, and for instance to try to evaluate the weight of an information which seems absolutely considerable at the time being by comparing it with what happened in the past, and what events have been remembered from the past and what events by opposition have been completely forgotten. And if you begin to look at the present time with these glasses, you find a sense of relativity in the way we live in the present, and it helps. So I cannot, in conscience, tell you this is a good way to teach history or not, because I am not a historian, I am not a teacher. I happen to teach sometimes, but not history. So I will not venture myself on this ground, but I am sure that the luggage you carry with you in your memory relating to the history of those who have come before is absolutely crucial in the way you are able to understand the world today. And not to dwell in the past, just to be able to, I would say, put things in perspective and in dimensions.
Right. It's France got a lot of leaders during their years. When you talk about U.S. history, you always ask about which is your favorite president. Which is your favorite president? Which inspired you the most? France has a lot of them, not just democratic leaders, but as well as authoritarian. But they might be good in their ways. Like Napoleon I arose huge infrastructure project as well as education, which we use today. Would you like to tell us about which leader of France that is the most inspiring?
Well, I am completely biased, because my mother was Corsican.
Okay.
So there is only one possible reference. Yeah. It's Napoleon.
The first?
Yes, the first. There's no other.
The third?
I'm a bit harsh saying that, but the truth is when you say Napoleon, nobody will think spontaneously of the third.
Not the second, at least.
And the second had a difficult destiny. Why do I say that? Not forgetting my Corsican roots. It's because when you look at modern France, and somebody hugely criticized that, some others hugely applaud, is there are very few institutions we are living on today that has not been created by Napoleon. Our modern state is completely designed on the way he imagines things. But this is just one small part we were talking about education. Who created the lycée all around France, which are still working today, not in the same way, obviously, but still, the principle of this institution, wherever you are in France, Napoleon. Our civil law, which is called in French the Code Civil, all the rules who are defining, the legal interaction between individuals, and I'm not talking about the state, I'm really talking about marriage, contracts, everything dealing with ordinary life. It comes from what is sometimes called Napoleonic Code, but we call it a Code Civil, and it's still, it has been modified, completed, and reached, whatever we can say. But still, it's entirely him who appointed a small group of lawyers to write it, and he supervised it himself. So you can say many things about Napoleon, but nobody could ever say he was not a universal mind, because he is extremely famous for winning and then losing battles, which will stay in the military history. But this is only one aspect of the way his brain was working. And when you look at the design of so many institutions in the modern world, at least in France, you are amazed by his print. So yes, even if it's not very original, I must say the leader in the distant past who still impresses a lot of French people, including me, is him.
Yeah, because it's an interesting thing that even though Napoleon were an authoritarian leader, he still used the ideas of Voltaire, Montesquieu, as well as Rousseau. So kind of like sometimes it looks like you need an authoritarian leader to introduce these ideas, let them work out, and then you change to democracy eventually.
Let's say he had quite a leadership temper, so this is not to be discussed, and nobody would refer to Napoleon as the most accomplished example of a democrat. So this is not a point to be discussed. But still, you're right, in his own way, he used his ability, once again exceptional, in every point, to change in a very short period of time completely a country that had been I would say for centuries ruled by monarchs. Some of them had changed the country, but not radically. And he arrived at a time where he took all the lessons of the revolution and all the seeds of modernization created by the revolution, but he wanted a stable political order, to his benefit, obviously, and he amalgamated all that. And which is striking, that who came after him, even the king, when there was a restoration in France, they could not change that. They could never go back. They could never destroy most of the institutions created by Napoleon, and the Republic after him didn't either, because these tools were extremely powerful and efficient, and they had shaped a considerable amount of our day-to-day acts, life. I was referring to the code, but many other examples could be given. Our main high school in science, Polytechnic, was his creation, and it's still there more than 200 years later, and I could give you 20 examples of the kind. So yes, it's difficult not to be impressed.
I'm very glad that people are actually getting to learn about Napoleon from a French ambassador, not just from a history teacher that been teaching the same again and again and again, because this is something I don't hear at the school, that these institutions are still there, which are a very interesting thing. But now over to a completely different topic, which is sent from Tromsø. And the question is as follows. France is the most visited country in the world. According to TripAdvisor, France have been the last 20 years visited by more tourists than anyone else in the world. So it's easy to talk about the Eiffel Tower, it's easy to talk about Lyon with the Bocuse d'Or, and it's easy to talk about Nice with the beaches, but it's still other countries that has exactly these things. So I just wonder, what is the reason to actually France is the most visited country in the world, not the United States, not Britain? Why is it France?
Well, the figures are that last year we are complete.
Of course, before the
tourism. Yes, tourism. I think we had 80 million visitors in France in 2019. So it's 2019, I think.
Yeah, but it was 88 million.
88? We have found 8 more million, so it's even more than I thought. So the reason why it's indeed difficult to find one reason. When you travel, what do you seek for? You might want to see different sceneries. You might want to find places where you want to rest and relax. You might want more or less a glimpse in history, as we just did before. You might want to be in places where there will be good gastronomy and wines and things like that. And perhaps what is our asset is many countries could say we have that or we have this. What we can do is in France we have all of it. It's a combination. You will find all that, and you will find all that on a territory with, I would say, medium size. France is not a huge territory. It's a bit larger than Norway, but not so much, you know. I believe Norway is 2/3 of the surface of France. Not in the same shape, but if you look at the figures, I think, yes, you have more or less, so the difference is not so big. We are much smaller than the United States, obviously, than Russia, than many other countries. And nevertheless, on this very small surface, we have very different things. We have a coastline. I don't have fjords, but still...
hey, we got fjords!
Yes, indeed. Well, as you very well know, one region of France is named after you.
Oh.
You don't know that?
You can please tell me.
Normandy.
Normandy?
Where do you think that's come from?
Norman?
Norman, yes. I believe it's just come from...
Is it so easy? Norman?
Yes.
Norman?
Normandy. It's you named it.
Norman, yeah. It's
it's a very nice part of France, but very different from Brittany, which is very near. And then you go a little more south, you will find the Atlantic coast with huge sand beaches and surf. And then if you reach the Spanish border, you will find high mountains where you will be able to ski in winter. And if you go east, you will reach the Mediterranean Sea and very different sceneries. And if you go a little round north towards Switzerland, you will find the highest mountain in Europe, the Alps. And in the central part of France, you will find perhaps every 20 kilometers you will find a church or a castle or an historic monument that is related to European history. Not only ours, in fact, but some of them were built by the British when they were possessing Aquitaine. Some other in the eastern part of France will have direct German influence because our territory has always been a crossroad also. In the more ancient time, in the Middle Age, what was fabricated in the Netherlands or in northern part of Europe was coming through the Rhone Valley to marketplaces like Lyon. And we created at that time some beautiful industries in the textile area. So we have always been at the crossroad of different influences, and all these influences have left a mark on our territory. We sometimes have left marks in other countries too. And I think the result of all this is today's wealth of France, on the point of view of monuments, local histories, and it's true also. I could not explain to you our love for food. It's very difficult to understand, but I do share it. So it's a reality that in France, in the smallest village, you will find a good place to have a simple and probably delicious meal. So it's also, I would say, an appeal for travelers and tourists to get that.
Yeah, and you have a very strategic position as well in the heart of Europe. So you can go to Spain, you can go to Italy, you can go to Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, wherever you want, as well as Britain. So that's a very good thing to say. But in 2019, it was 88 million people visiting. One of those people were actually me. So I'm one of 88 million people. But we
hope you come back quickly.
I will for sure. If not something mysteriously happens, but as the highest representative of France in Norway, which is number one place you would like to recommend us Norwegian to visit in France? If it's one place you would like us to visit.
I cannot say that because I will make thousands of enemies.
You do?
Yes, because all those who I don't recommend will say, why did you choose that one? So I can only recommend to organize a trip in France. So you make sure you have a taste of the different assets I just mentioned. Once again, it's not a huge territory. We have this excellent network of high-speed trains. Who can get you from Paris to Bordeaux in 2 hours, but to Lyon in 2 hours, to Marseille in a little more than 3 hours. So nothing is far when you are in France. So before leaving Norway, just pick a few places according to your own taste also. You'd like to see and organize an itinerary, and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, Barcelona takes 5.5 hours to go to London. 1 hour and 50 minutes with train. I done the whole thing, so I know how it is, and it's impressive infrastructure you got there. Expensive, but of course it's.
Yes.
Personally, I was impressed with the catacombs in Paris.
Yeah, indeed. Paris, by itself, Paris is a whole world. So you can spend 3 weeks in Paris, and you won't get the end of it.
Just at Versailles and Louvre, 2 weeks, So
you can spend several days in the Louvre. Yes,
crazy. Took me 5 hours to get to Mona Lisa, and that was the only thing we were going to do there. But it's an interesting thing with the tourism in France, because it's a lot of people actually wonder a lot about that. So now you got the message from the highest representative of France in Norway telling you about that. But now more over to the French and Norwegian cooperation. Where do we cooperate? Where do France and Norway cooperate the most?
Well, it would be simpler for me to answer the question where do we cooperate the least, because it would be a very short one, a very short answer. So we have a very wide range of cooperation. First, because we are, always have been, friends and allies. And you look at history, France and Norway has always been on the same side, and it's as simple as that. And when I got to better know Norway, I better understood we have very much in common when it is a question of, I would say, institution. Values, all the notion we are referring to in our previous exchange about democracy, enlightenment, all this has been very much in the thinking of those who created the modern Norway. And so this inspiration is very similar to ours, and it creates natural understanding as we have to deal with political matters. So the ground for our cooperation is really extremely thick and rich, so it helps a lot. After that, when you look at the different compartments where nations have to interact, well, you take a strategic and military subject. We are a member of the same alliance. Our navy are cooperating and working together a lot in the North Atlantic, but not only, and we are very closely there. When you come to the economic matters, well, we are one of our significant customers in the energy field, and we have been relying on you for gas product for a long time, and now we are shifting together towards the energy transition, and we will work together on new fields like carbon and capture and storage, like hydrogen, and our big companies, public or private, are closely cooperating on this matter. Total has been present in Norway historically for oil and gas, and now is working on renewable energies, and I could name many others. So when you look at economy, we are also extremely interlinked and cooperating. But it doesn't stop there. Indeed, we have close link on new research programs. We are working together on artificial intelligence related to health. We participate together to several important research programs funded by the EU, where French and Norwegian researchers are working for the same purpose and in a very close and interconnected manner. But I could indeed also mention all what create a common understanding between us when it comes to the multilateral institutions. France and Norway are always coordinating in foreign multilateral institutions to share generally the same goals, speak the same language, and align their position, or at least coordinate them in the best possible way. And our foreign ministers are talking together very regularly to make sure that at the highest level we are exactly with the same thinking. The last of this exchange between them was not the last Friday, but the week before.
Right.
And this is not an extraordinary event. This is something we do very frequently. And I could talk indeed about cultural exchange. I was extremely impressed when I arrived in Norway, and since I've been in Norway, by the number of Norwegians who are interested in French literature. We are talking about the literary festival of Lillehammer, but other events of the same kind, and also, as you probably know, there are Norwegian writers who are also translated in French, and who are read in French. Norway has acquired through the last decades much more visibility, I would say, in the international stage on general, and in France in particular. And we are speaking of France as a possible destination for tourists, but as you know, many French people now, not now exactly, but as soon as possible, are coming to discover Norway, to visit Norway. The first time I went to Tromsø, I was very proud of myself because I was trying dog sledging. And in fact, when I arrived, to take the bus to go to the site, the bus was full of French-speaking persons, and the one we were not French were Italians. And Tromsø is perhaps not as
Nordic Paris.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we say in Norway.
Exactly. Just saying that in many ways the proximity of our history and now the fact that it is once again in normal period so easy to move from one country to another makes that so many links, in fact, at all levels have been created. Yeah, there are indeed the higher education aspect we were talking about before, were also an excellent way of building a long-term relationship. And my list could go on and on if I was not afraid to bore you.
How can the relationship improve? Do you have any ways of getting it even better? Or is it?
Well, you can always do better, because there is always room for improvement. I would say better in quality, because we really don't have any conflict I can foresee. But it can get better in intensity. That means we can do more of the same. We can have more in common on research field. We can have more French students visiting Norway and French and Norwegian students in taking courses in France. We can have more French presence in Norway at the economic level, and we can increase our trade exchange. Indeed, all this is something we should seek for, but it's always necessary to set goals and to set ambitions. But it's true that we start from a quite high level already, and we can do better, because there are fields. I was referring to the energy transition, where obviously French and Norwegian point of view can match very well, and the cooperation we had at the time of oil and gas, and we still are indeed in that, because it's not finished at the moment, but can transform itself in something extremely powerful for green energy, and we are all looking both on the French and the Norwegian side at the possibilities offered by the EU Green Deal, and all this is a full set of opportunities for us.
It's an interesting thing. I just remember that Norway were actually supporting Napoleon during Denmark, Norway.
That's
so we
true, and we were punished for that.
Yeah, we were, but we kind of like old allies.
I can.
You can take that. We share that blame with Denmark as well.
Exactly.
We should have had the Denmark ambassador here as well, so we could just You guys, thank you for losing the big fleet of ours. But yeah, long time. No, we don't talk about that, so we're just fine. Just so we know it. We forgive both Denmark and France. So don't worry.
No trouble.
Good. The last question of our seminar gives you the opportunity to tell Norwegian students. You can either say it to the camera or you can say it to me. It's up to you. Why they should promote higher education in France as an opportunity for you to reach out to our students that is looking at this.
Well, the first thing is you are most welcome in France. You will get the opportunity to find new friends who are eager to welcome you. You can find, I believe, a wide range of possibilities, whatever your choice are, in science, in political science, in economy, in business. I think France has all of it to offer, and you will contribute to promote in the future our strong friendship, which is very precious to us, and I believe it is also very precious for Norwegians. So I don't see any reason why you should not come to France.
What is the biggest reason to love France?
Well, each one of us has its own reason, you know. So there is not one reason for everybody. Everybody chooses the aspect of France he loves most.
You are an ambassador, and you have obviously done something good in your life, because if not, you wouldn't be the highest representative of the country here. So we can of course say that you are a successful person. Come on, that's a common fact with, I believe, almost every ambassador. What is your advice to Norwegian students going out there studying and trying to do something good in their life? What is your best advice?
Be curious.
Curious.
Yes. Curiosity is a powerful driver. It will always lead you to new fields, interesting experiences. Sometimes will change because these experiences will not be as pleasant as you imagine, but be curious, stay alert. I think life is never boring if you keep that at the core of your mind. So I have been fortunate enough not to be bored all my professional life, and I still enjoy it very much, and I do enjoy Norway.
It's been a huge pleasure of coming here. We were supposed to sit here for like 45 minutes. Now it's 2.5 hours over 2 periods of time, and it's been a huge pleasure for me to interview Mr. Ambassador. And I guess I believe that it's been a huge investment for people to follow this interview as well. So thank you so much for this seminar.
Tusen takk.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Thank you so much. And we will have this Corona handshake. So.